family members of folks who are seeing, well, there's something going on here. I think there's a substance abuse issue. Can you answer two things? Mm-hmm. One, if you're concerned about a family member,
yeah,
how can you identify it if you aren't certain?
Yeah.
And then two, man, what are the first steps to addressing it in a loving but sincere way with that family member?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think there's always the direct route.
Yeah.
Asking
quit
someone,
doing crack.
Yeah, well, are you
That-
are you struggling? Are you using drugs? Are you, what does that look like? And sometimes people will be open and talk about that and say, yeah, I am, and this is what it is, and oftentimes, of course, they won't. But you can look at just someone's behavior. Is there a change in their affect, in their outward emotional state? Is it looking different? Are they isolating? Are they separating themselves from the family? Are you noticing the things that your loved one used to get great joy out of isn't bringing them joy anymore or comfort anymore? If you're talking about your kids or your teenagers, is there a shift in their friends group? Is there a shift in their school performance, in their work performance? Does something look different here?
And you identify that there's an issue there. How do you approach it and encourage that person toward the right kind of help, and what even is the right kind of help?
Yeah, I think you have to set the boundaries for yourself, and if it is someone who lives with you and your household,
Let's call it a spouse. Let's use that.
So say it's your spouse. It is incredibly difficult to walk with somebody through that when you see the choices in the situation feel self-destructive, and not just self-destructive, but destructive for the family, destructive for our future, destructive for the life that we are chasing after together. And our first inclination is just to want to shake the dickens out of them. Just stop it. Just stop it. Not incredibly effective, right? Not incredibly effective.
Well, I imagine it comes out of anger and just frustration and not knowing maybe how to help them.
Yeah.
That's the first thing a person would feel like doing,
If you love someone and you see them making choices that are unloving towards themselves,
right.
That's incredibly sad. It's incredibly infuriating and frustrating. And so, one of the things I always encourage a husband or a wife who's dealing with their spouse in that kind of a situation is you got to get you fortified. Right? You need to make sure you're on solid ground. You've got to make sure you've got people around helping you. You've got to make sure if you have children that their needs are being met, that they're being cared for. And you have to ensure that you are not knowingly or unknowingly exposing your household to dangerous situations. If someone is struggling with drugs and bringing drugs into the household, well, that can be a really dangerous situation, both physically, but also legally. There are all sorts of seizure laws where you can lose your home if someone's bringing drugs into the household.
Custody of children.
Custody of children, yeah. The foster care system in the United States is inundated with children whose parents' drug abuse, substance abuse, mental health issues have made it impossible for them to be under their parents' care.
What about if you suspect if it's your high schooler
Yeah.
dealing with something? Like what as a parent, obviously...
Which is different than if you got a minor.
Right, because they're a minor. They're under your care. You don't know if they're bringing it in or out of your house, but maybe you suspect there's some kind of experimentation going on. Like, what do you do as a parent? Like, I don't even know where I would begin.
Yeah, I remember when I was in some of my struggles, and I remember my dad very frankly telling me, I think you were smoking pot in the house, and that's not going to happen. Just matter of fact, that's just not going to happen, and giving kids an honest choice, right? Like, you can make these terrible choices. I wish you wouldn't. This is not going to help you to be the person that you want to be or the person that God's called you to be and made you to be. But you can make those choices. But what you can't do is do it in my home. You cannot bring those substances into my home. And so you have to set a boundary. And to set and uphold a boundary for a parent towards their child is next to impossible. To say if you continue on this, you will not live under my roof. Yep. If you continue to make these choices, we are not going to financially help you, and you're just going to have to figure it out. This is somebody's little baby who has grown up under their care, saying, I'm not going to watch you do this. And so incredibly hard. And that's when the parent needs that support system of people saying, you know what, you can offer support, you can offer help. You could offer your child, let's get you into a program, let's get you talking with a therapist, let's get those pieces moving. You can offer help, but you can't make them do it, even if they're a minor child. Right? You can take them to therapy. You can pay for therapy. Doesn't mean they're going to engage in therapy.
Right.
So you can offer, but at the end of the day, God gives us free will, gives kids free will too, and they have to make their choices, and you have to stand your ground, and that's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
It seems almost like in most of these cases, we can make some assumption that there's something underlying happening beneath the substance abuse issue. Mm-hmm. That being the case, you as a parent, a spouse, anybody who's addressing a loved one, even a dear friend, do you come to that person and say, hey, man, I know that you've been using meth, right? Or do you come to that friend and say, hey, I'd love to help you get some help. Is there something you want to talk about? Can I help you talk? What does that look like?
Yeah, I remember when I was a few years sober.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine from back home, my buddy John, he had a little bit of sober time and then would relapse, and a little bit of sober times and would relapse. And he called me one night, just jabbering, and I knew he was on some type of a stimulant.
Sure.
I knew he was not sober, and I just had a real matter-of-fact conversation with him, and I said, John, I love you, and I want the best for you, and if honestly you are happy and you are fulfilled, and this is what you want out of life, I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to be your friend. But if there's something there that's telling you this isn't what it's supposed to be, I'd be happy to help you, to encourage you. I'd be happy to, point you in the same direction that someone has pointed me. But it's up to you, man. One of the hardest things walking with people in recovery is it can't get out of order. If you're walking with somebody who has addiction issues, you can't want them to get clean and sober more than they want to get clean and sober. You can't do something